I went to Vietnam in 1971. After growing up in the shadows of Vietnam, it wasn't a question of if I would go to Vietnam, but when I would go. Like most veterans, I felt a responsibility to the country that had given us so much. We wanted to protect our family and friends from the enemies of our country before they reached our shores or spread their communism on the unwilling. I knew that because I was in the infantry, I had a higher chance of being killed or wounded or becoming a P.O.W., but it was a chance I was willing to take. I guess that's what patriotism means. When our country asked for our help, we put our lives and our future in its hands. Never in my wildest dreams, nor in my worst nightmares, did I imagine that once the war was over, that our country would turn its back on our POWs. How could they leave behind the people who had sacrificed so much to protect and defend their country?
There are still 2,413 Americans unaccounted for. 2,413 people who have mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, wives, children, friends, and other relatives. Thousands and thousands of people all over America still waiting, still wondering, still hoping. Is our son still alive? How long will we let the POWs and their families go on suffering before we do something?
For almost 8 years after the war, our government made little effort to collect and analyze intelligence data indicating that there were still live Americans being held prisoner. In recent years, however, Vietnamese and Lao refugees have brought hundreds of reports of prisoners. Since the fall of Saigon in 1975, there have been 965 first-hand live sightings reported. Many of these are believed to have been the 68 Americans who were trapped and detained after Saigon fell, but who were allowed to leave the next year. Some of the reports were judged to be untrue, but many are still unresolved. Of the 2,413 still missing, 549 were in Laos and 82 were lost in Cambodia, primarily in areas controlled by Vietnam.
In the past few years, our government has stepped up efforts to get our POWs returned, but progress is slow. Let's make sure our congressmen know how much we want our POWs home.
A lot of time has passed. Many people were too young to remember, and many were so involved in their own lives that they never even knew. Even in a town like ours of only 3,000 people, where everybody knows everybody, many have forgotten, and many never knew, that we've got a soldier that's been missing in action since 1968.
That's why we wrote this song, to remind everyone and to help spur them into action. Alone we have been lost in the crowds of America, but we are uniting now, and we are going to sing and shout so loud that congressmen in Washington can no longer ignore our cries for action. We must work together to free our POWs and reunite our nation.
Remember, parents, it could have been your son that they left behind. And remember, veterans, it could have been you.
You know, we'll never really be free until they are. Oh yes, we want our prisoners home.